Hey everyone, welcome to episode 4 of this little series I've titled The Frustrated Social Seller. And really what it is it's me talking authentically about where I'm currently at in my journey with social selling, not on the other side. I love listening to people who have found success and who are on the other side, but I often wonder, what kind of frustrations did you go through to get there? And if you didn't go through any frustrations, then I don't know that I can relate to that, because for me, there's been frustrations along the way, and they've always been turned into something good, something useful, right? And so as I was thinking about my journey and where I've been and the ebbs and flows and the highs and the lows, if you will, I thought, you know what? I really wish more people talked about their struggles in the journey, even when they are successful. Like, I love hearing stories about, I'm successful now, but like, here's what led up to that, right? Like here, and just like knowing that they were also maybe in a pit, or they also went through their own frustrations. And so that's why I started this, because I enjoy hearing from people who are in the midst of it. And so I am in the midst of my own journey. I will be for a long time, but this past year, I experienced some frustrations and I've learned from it. And so I'm just really here to pass on just what I've learned to you all. And so today, what I want to talk about is results and what some tomato plants taught me about results. And so I'm going to share my screen with you and we're going to talk about this really fast. Just kind of, are you actually in charge of your own results? And I think some of you would say, yeah, you're in charge of your results. 100% you're in charge of your results. And I would say, but are you? Are you actually in charge of the results? Or are you in charge of showing up? Okay, so here we have my screen share right now. These are my tomato plants. So you can see this photo is from July 2020. Okay, so you can see there's 2 tomato plants here. There's a tomato plant in the back and a tomato plant in the front. And guess what? I planted them in the exact same soil at the exact same time, treated them no differently, and look what's happening. One tomato plant is exploding. Okay, like I could not even keep up with that guy. He was out of control. He produced so many tomatoes. And this plant right here at this point in the journey is finally flowering. We are 3 months in. Okay, so most seeds come to fruition, 90 to 120 days. So we're 90-ish days in, and the fruit is happening for that one tomato plant. But for the other one, we're just finally flowering. Okay. And I show you this because this is always a great reminder to me that I don't really know that we are actually in charge of the timing of the results. So I think oftentimes we get confused and we set a goal and we have a timeline on that goal. And then we know if we do X, Y, Z, we will hit that result in that time frame. And then when that doesn't happen, we feel defeated and frustrated and we wonder what's wrong. But the real perspective is nothing. Nothing. I mean, everybody blooms in their own season. And PS, you can't be in bloom all year, okay? And some journeys take a little longer to success than others. And so you can't really compare. So take one last look at these tomato plants, and I'm going to stop sharing, but just notice the differences, okay? Just notice that. And then I'm going to stop sharing and let's talk about that. Okay, so the one plant that was only flowering finally started producing fruit 6 months in. And in Kansas, where I'm from, that's too late. Okay, like the frost was starting. So I was like, okay, but here's the thing. I didn't give up on that tomato plant because I remember thinking, I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to see if this guy finally produces some fruit. And he finally did. He finally started having like all these little green tomatoes that probably would have come to fruition had the frost not happened, right? Because that little tomato plant was just on its own little journey. The other one, right, did exactly what it was supposed to do. And this other one just was like, nope, sorry, I'm on my own journey. And I just think that is honestly how a lot of journeys are. And the best way to sabotage yourself, by the way, is to compare yourself with others, to compare your journey to somebody else's. I can't tell you how often in the social selling world, I hear people say, oh, it took me forever to get to that rank, or I'm the, 5-year, diamond or whatever. It took me 5 years. And I'm sitting here thinking, but that's great. Like, how about we be proud of that? But there's this idea that faster is better. And I would argue that faster is not better. I would argue that doing the things you can do consistently over time helps sustain you through inevitable ebbs and flows, right? That's why I love the tomato plant analogy, because think about farmers. Okay. So when we talk about results, let me go back here. When we talk about results, I don't actually believe you're in charge of them, or the timing of them. Okay. I don't believe that, because I just don't. Anyway, so and there's, the idea is there's circumstances, and you are not in charge of your circumstances. They just are. You can make them whatever you want to make them, but your circumstances just are whatever they are. The condition of that soil was the circumstance. It just was. It wasn't good or bad or whatever. It just was. Well, then I came along and I was in charge of my thoughts, right? My thoughts about those tomato plants, my feelings about how I was going to go about it, and my actions. Okay. But I wasn't in charge of the results. I couldn't make the results happen the way I wanted to, when I wanted to. I just had to trust the process. And I think that's so true for anything in our life, whatever you want to compare it to. It could be your social selling journey. It could be your health journey, your financial journey, whatever. Like, circumstances, right? Like, you aren't in charge of those. They just are, but you are in charge of what you choose to think about it, which impacts how you feel, which impacts how you will act, which will in return impact your results, whatever those might be. But I really want to caution us against the idea that we're in charge of the results, the timing of, and how they happen. I don't think you are. I read this great quote that said, if you hold on to the outcomes, they will hold on to you, which really means if you're holding so tight to those outcomes, they are going to overtake you, and they are going to hold on to you to the point that you are going to forget why you're doing what you're doing in the first place, whatever it is. I'm talking about social selling, but I don't believe you can hold on to the outcomes as if they will and should happen when you want and on your time frame. I think there's a lot to be said for trusting the process, and in the midst of trusting the process, not comparing your journey with somebody else's. That is a great way to sabotage your own success. But just like the farmers, kind of what I mentioned earlier, like the farmers, like the reality is the farmers aren't in charge of the circumstances. Okay. They are not in charge of the weather, which is a circumstance. Okay. They are not in charge of what happens there. They are only in charge of planting the seed, watering it, do everything they know they're supposed to do to meet their end goal, which is a healthy crop, right? That's all they can do. Like, they aren't in charge of whether or not they received a good seed or not. They aren't in charge of, what's impacting the soil, whatever. They are not in charge of the weather. Okay. They don't know if a hailstorm is going to come and ruin their crops. They don't know, but they know to trust the process, because they know that in the end, they're looking for fruition. And there are years where the crops are terrible, but think about what would happen if the farmers gave up. If the farmers gave up and were like, that's it, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of trying to figure out when I'll have a successful crop. I'm out. We would all be starving, right? And so I think you can apply the same to your journey. Like, don't be so quick to give up, and don't be so quick to decide that your current results or your current outcomes are some indicator of whether or not things can get better in your journey, or you will hit those results in your time. But you are in charge of what you do consistently. So you can't start and stop, but you can be consistent along the way, knowing that your only job is to plant a seed, water it, feed it, nurture it, whatever that is, by the way, for you. And then the outcome, when it chooses to grow, it will grow. You can't make anything grow. I mean, I wish we could, but you can't. So you could spend a lot of time being frustrated about the things you aren't in charge of and the things you have no control over, or you can spend all that energy on the things you do have control over and find joy in that and contentment. And just know that while one tomato plant over here is just rocking and rolling, this other one still has great potential. Don't give up on it. I think it will happen in its time, and it will. Whatever your time frame is, whatever goal you have, like, enjoy the journey, continue on, expect rough patches along the way, and learn from them. And so the next time I get on here, I think what we'll do is we'll chat about this idea of horizon chasing and what that looks like, especially if you're an achiever. So I hope you found some value out of this today thought process, kind of thinking about the tomato plants. If you did, leave me a comment. Or like the video or whatever. And again, thanks for being here. For those of you who are following along and curious about what I'll share next, I really just go week by week and just want to be authentic along the way. So everything I'm telling you, I'm telling myself constantly. So that's why I still have that picture of that tomato plant, because it reminds me that the results are not mine. They are not mine. I can't make them happen when I want them to happen. They will happen. I'm only in charge of how I show up and if I do it consistently or not. That's it. So anyway, thanks for watching. Talk to you later.